So when we actually located the product and the manufacturers had a discussion about where we wanted to go with this, the obvious thing we needed to then decide was who was going to trial the product and on what sort of basis. And obviously you have different types of trials. We needed to have replicated trials, which means we had to have a number of replicates within that, and we had to have the right people. So one of the obvious ones that came to light very early in the piece was Starter Fresh under David Tanner. We also used PG Wrightson's PGG and their research division. They put trials together every year since we started. That was really good independent assessment. We also had Plant and Food doing work, and we had a number of individual growers doing some work independently as well, which was more a comparative trial than a replicated trial, but still was really interesting information and understanding how the product's working and what timing we needed to use. Whenever you have a new concept or a new product, there are always things that you find out about it when it's used on a semi-commercial basis that you wouldn't necessarily find out in a very structured, tiered research organisation. The other thing is we wanted the actual grower themselves to do some assessments and get some independent assessment from a grower perspective as against a research perspective. Couldn't use the data within the replicated trial work, but we could use it as we would call it a sniff test to actually show or give an approval to the product in terms of efficacy. So when we looked at the performance of Syncron, it became very apparent very early on that we needed to compare it to hydrogen cyanamide. We also need to compare it with the control because we actually needed to know we were achieving something. But more importantly, from a grower's perspective, they already had a product that was performing really well. And one of the criteria we picked up on really soon, early in the actual trial process, is that we needed to have what we call a sweet spot really examined closely relating to Syncron. In other words, we needed to assess the actual yield factor, which is the money that you were going to gain per square meter of canopy. And that was your size or weight of the fruit, somewhere between 110 and 160 grams. And we also needed to look at the number of fruit, which was generally considered to be between 50 and 70 fruit per square meter of canopy. If we can hit that sweet spot every time, every year, we know that's where we're going to maximize the actual money generated per square meter of canopy that the growers are going to be satisfied with. From then, at that point, we also needed to have what we were producing. In other words, how many king flowers were we producing on each one of these buds? How many laterals, doubles, trebles, etc. were we producing or not producing, as the case may be, alongside of that? And then what were we doing to the actual flowering space? So how long was flowering taking place from start to finish compared to hydrogen cyanamide with Syncron? Was there a variance to that? Because condensing flowering is actually a real positive thing. And then we look at the number of fruit per square meter of canopy that we actually could achieve once we had gone through all of that analysis and decide that, hey, we actually have enough fruit here. And again, the numbers that people tout there are somewhere between 50 and 70 fruit.